Welcome to the Mike and Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Veerman, and I'm here with my friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman, who just got off of the road after being away for, I feel like, forever.
Yeah, I'm home, baby. I'm home for like a month. It's awesome.
We also got Shane Cunningham here, our pop culture aficionado.
Happy holidays.
How you guys doing?
Pretty good. Have you done any Christmas shopping yet?
Yep.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Are you done?
I still got to do my dad, and I don't know what the hell I'm going to get him. I'm hoping I can just put that onto my brother.
You know what? I was thinking about it because I have a bunch of people I need to buy gifts for. I'm just going with cards.
I was just going to say that's the easiest thing to do.
Just cards with a nice note. So I spent $60 on like 10 nice cards or 8 nice cards in Hamilton and Mixed Media. Nice homemade kind of Hamilton looking cards. I'm just going to write something really nice on the inside.
Well, how do you guys feel, though, when you get a card as a gift?
If it's from another adult, it's totally fine.
I guess. It's like, I don't need a card.
Like, I like
What if it's a really thoughtful note?
Yeah,
though?
if it's a
what
good
if
note.
someone's pouring out their heart? Mike's rolling his eyes.
If it's clear that you're putting thought into this, I don't know. I tell you guys how I feel about you all the time. I don't need a card at Christmas to know how you
if
feel.
you gave me a card and was like, Shane, you've like changed the podcast, you add so much to it, I'd be really touched. I'd be brought to tears probably almost. Whereas like when you get a grown-up job, you can almost buy anything you want, so gifts lose their value to me.
Right.
And when I'm married, I share the same bank account with my wife, so I'm like, don't get me any gifts because it's just like me buying a gift.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we literally share the bank account. Like there's no separation. So I could see all the gifts anyway.
The one thing I'm actually worried about is my sister's kids. Kids' affection for adults is usually based on if the adult gives them good gifts at their birthday and Christmas
Measured
time.
by your gifts.
It totally is. So I can't be like, hey, I'm going to, take you out to a movie because like, well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, gifts are for kids, I think.
Yeah.
You don't value like a nice written card. Like that doesn't do anything for you.
I guess if, to your point, if somebody were to give me a card and I opened it and it was like this paragraph of like a really sort of like heartfelt sentiment where they got into maybe like I would be taken aback. Sure. It just seems like those aren't the cards that come. It's usually like happy holidays.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't have any time for those cards.
No.
Right? Like I don't give a shit what Hallmark says. I want a blank card with like handwritten stuff in
Something
it. All
really
about
sweet.
me.
Yeah. I missed some Christmas partying though. The one regret that I have about being on the road is missing events with you guys. How's the pub crawl?
Oh, it was awesome. It was the best one it's ever been.
Explain the context of the pub crawl, Mike.
So every year we do a thing called the 12 Bars of Christmas or the 12 Pubs of Christmas. And
Which make us really sound like we're a bunch of college frat boys.
this tradition will never die, Max. So like, I don't know, anywhere from like 14 to like about 14 guys go out and we hit every bar in Hamilton, Ontario on like James Street North. And it's really fun because at every bar you do a thing called credit card roulette where we throw all of our cards into a hat. They come out one by one. When your card comes out, you're super happy because you don't have to catch the bill. And then the last two have to split the bill.
That's so exciting though, right?
It is. And then, so this year the rules were you're out for the next 2 rounds. And then if you get hit again, you can never get hit more than twice in the night.
Okay.
But because it was such bad weather and so icy, we had a thing where if you slipped and fell, you lost your immunity, meaning you get back thrown back into the pool.
That's a good rule.
Awesome. It was awesome.
How many people were falling?
I fell after got hit twice, so my immunity was gone.
Oh no!
My card never got pulled again.
Oh, thank
and
God.
Sean Dawson had one of the funniest spills I've ever seen. Like he hit the ground and then he tried to get up, but it was so icy. He like hit the ground again and flailed like a deer on ice. Like it was the funniest thing, man. Anyway, so he lost his immunity. I don't think he got hit again after that, but everything got a little blurry by that point. But you guys are there every year, and this year you were both missing.
Well, it's funny. I got harassed a lot for not going by the Nut. Who? How do we give him context real quick for if this is
people know who the Nut is?
Yeah, listeners of the show know the Nut is one of our friends. He's a pretty boisterous guy. Him and Shane have a bit of a rivalry.
He's been doing this nice guy routine for I'd say about 8 months, where we haven't had any altercations. Because we did have a big altercation where he had my passport and wouldn't give it back. And the reason I needed my passport was because my wife has lupus and I was trying to speed up the process of us getting legally married so she could be on my benefits package. Uh-huh. Once the Nut found this out, he was very apologetic. And he said, well, if you just told me she was sick, then it would be fine. Uh-huh. So I was like, okay, good point. And then things were cool. Anyway, Alex, my wife, by and large, has mostly been in decent health. Not great, but decent health. I went to a Marlies game, I think I got tickets from your buddy Kyle Dubas.
Oh, nice.
And the Marlies game was at 1:30 p.m. So I have plenty of time to get back home for the pub crawl, which starts at 5:30 p.m. But I also got promoted at work recently.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't know
So my dad and stepmom want to take me out for dinner. I'm like, fine, still be home plenty of time. Unfortunately, the place we went to, I don't know, something made Alex sick possibly, or maybe she just was going to be sick anyway. And like when she's sick, it's not like, oh, I've got a tummy ache. Like her organs are shaking. She's like crying. She's like, she like passes out. So I'd love to be like, you're fine, honey. Go to a pub crawl and come back shit faced. But what if I come back and she's dead? You know, to be honest, I don't know a lot about lupus. I know they say it's the disease of 1,000 faces or whatever. But I put in the group like, oh, you know, Alex is sick, guys. And no one really said anything. And then the nuts like lies. There's a million Instagram posts on how I'm a loser. Like, so as much as I appreciate the nut coming out of his shell and being a real guy and not so much of a phony anymore, it was just kind of odd for him to choose like my wife's sickness as that to be breaking the ice.
The other side of that would be, because it's like you say that, it sounds like people are the most terrible people in the world. Like the guy's wife's sick and it's like we heckled him the whole time. The thing is, I think because, you know, since let's say the joint bachelorette where you weren't able to go on a bachelor party because your wife was maybe not feeling that tradition.
Yeah.
So when you can't attend a pub crawl, I think that the overriding feeling was this is another example potentially of like her feeling like she's missing out, him not going.
Sure, but like people who know Alex, like she's not a lying person. If she didn't want me to go, she'd go, oh, I don't want you to go, or play some angle. Like Alex doesn't lie. Like I've had girls who've like been like, oh, like stay home, don't leave. Alex isn't like that. She's like, go party, and if she's unhappy, she'll discuss it.
I think people are concerned that you're throwing around the lupus card, like, oh, whenever you get out anything, oh, it's the lupus again. And then it seems suspicious because it's like, oh, how convenient on one of the nights that the boys are getting together.
If you know Alex, you know she's not like that. Like she's literally the least like that girlfriend person girl I've ever met in my life. And I'm the first to slag a girlfriend.
We're not saying her. We're not saying that she didn't get sick that night.
Right.
Or that she faked it.
But Mike, what do I do? Do I go on a pub crawl and come home with my wife shaking on the ground? Our other
They're yelling. I don't care. Like
no, I'm yelling.
It just makes it seem like it's like these guys are huge.
No, I said the nuts are huge. I didn't know you were actually talking behind my back, Mike. And if anyone, I thought you'd be like being like, oh, actually, Shane wouldn't do that. I thought you'd have my back.
Though, what do you think Shane wouldn't do? What
would say? Oh, like actually, his wife is probably sick because I know Shane and I know Alex closer maybe than those guys did.
Right. No, all it was it was like you didn't show up. You turned your phone off, so no one could get a hold of you.
I didn't turn my phone off.
Guys, I think it's
we're not going to record anymore. All right. That conversation literally went on for another 20 minutes. So we cut out most of it and we're back.
It was mostly just Mike and Shane screaming at each other.
Well, we concluded that the nuts and
we also concluded that it's very typical of most group behavior that you just shit on the person who isn't there.
Mm-hmm. I'm just glad people found comedy in sickness. I'm just glad.
All right, next subject. Speaking of the Champagne Boys message group, our one friend, we won't mention his name, was having a bit of an after party, and the neighbor stormed in at 3 a.m.
Kicked down the door, complaining about the sound. And the thing about our friend who was hosting the after party is he likes to think of himself as a very considerate, neighborly person. He was very shook by the fact that this guy like broke down his door just to say stop playing the music. Like it was a total like overreaction on the part of his neighbor. But when our friend told the Champagne Boys the news of what had happened, everybody was thinking about how to be retributive justice. Vigilante justice.
Yeah, vigilante justice. And Sean Dawson said, let's lure him to the East End, which is a notoriously tougher side of town in Hamilton. It's like, let's lure him to End Zones, which is like an East End bar. It's like, justice will be served with a side of wings. That cracked me up so.
I love you loving that joke more than I love the joke.
Honestly, when Sean wrote that, I was just cackling to myself in the van.
Justice Wizard. Well, go on.
Are we lawyering up? Like, what's happening?
No, actually, our friend had to figure out what he was going to do next. He went the other way. He's a pacifist. He wrote a letter, a very nice letter. I helped him draft it, basically saying, first of all, he started with an apology. I apologize for making noise at late hours of the night. I pride myself on being a good neighbor. This won't happen again. That said, your reaction was like totally uncalled for. It was violent and unnecessary, and this can't ever happen again. I look forward to being a good neighbor to you. Here's my number if you ever want to talk. Hope you have a great holidays. So he didn't press charges. He didn't bring it to the condo board.
He didn't ask for money back for the trim that got broken when this guy kicked the door in and destroyed the garbage can.
I think he may have included a photo. So I think what I would...
Was he topless? Or?
No, a photo of the damage. Sometimes if you take the high road, when you go high, they go low. No, when they go low, you go high.
Sure. That's a pretty popular saying.
Yeah, or when they go low... They win the election.
Yeah, exactly. This guy will, he got to burst in and destroy parts of our friend's, condo. And really what will be the sort of repercussions of that?
Yeah,
there
we'll
won't
see.
be.
Yeah.
The thing I thought was interesting was in the group is we just started kind of self-reflecting on why we're all such
well, I think because none of us are tough, right? So if you're good at something, you're gonna want guys who do kickboxing. You're always kind of hoping you get in a fight and you can have that moment. And guys who are kind of clever, you always want to have the ultimate witty retort.
Yeah.
And I think we're more witty retort guys.
Right. So when a guy bursts in the door, it's we're not going to fight. We're just going to bust a good joke.
Yeah. Be like, nice kick. And then everyone laughs or something. And then that guy feels humiliated by the verbal lashing.
You honestly seeing guys fight, if you're at a bar in Hess Village, is so upsetting to me. It really is. Mm-hmm. I almost start crying just watching it.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to say a few words about Casey Affleck, your doppelganger?
So, so a couple things. Because we had to drive home from Nashville, our last tour date, it was just Nick and I in the van. The rest of the guys flew. We had a lot of time to talk, catch up. It was a really good bonding experience, but we also listened to a lot of podcasts, and we listened to the WTF pod with Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
And he was so Boston and refreshingly honest, despite the fact he's been in LA and hangs out with all these Hollywood types. So Marc Maron would ask him, oh, so you got to play a part in Ocean's 12. What was that like? He's like, hated it.
Yeah.
Did you get to act in a scene with George Clooney? Well, I was in the background all blurry.
Yeah, the out of focus guy.
I'm the out of focus guy. It's but you got to say something in Chasing Amy. You got to roll in that. He's like, nah. He said, I show up, one line, who cares?
I don't like doing that kind of
I don't like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I hate that stuff. He was so funny. And Nick pointed out that he talks like he's just been screaming at somebody for 10 minutes. His voice has
got a rasp to it.
It's just horrible. But anyway, I used to be compared, somebody said I look like a celebrity, and I don't even want to say it, but I will for the sake of the story.
Tom Arnold?
No. Who's Tom Arnold?
I'm kidding. It was a bad joke.
Okay.
I know you could have picked a better name that maybe listeners would know who the hell you're talking about. He used to be married to Roseanne.
No, not Tom Arnold.
I'm sorry.
Tom Arnold.
Actually, Mike loves the joke. Charlie Day.
Oh yeah,
and I hated that because he plays an annoying character, and I guess he's okay looking, but when you get compared to somebody, you always want to be compared to the more handsome version of yourself than the less handsome version of yourself. So I used to be compared to Adam Brody on the OC, Adam Brody,
yeah.
And I was like, I like that because he's like a hunky dude, but I didn't like the Charlie Day one. But lately, I've been compared to Casey Affleck, Tegan and Sarah.
That's right.
Said I look like Casey Affleck
on the MMVA pod. Who do you get, Shane?
Well, when I was in I get Zach Braff a lot. But it was always you're a sexier Zach Braff, so I kind of like that. But then when I got Johnny Depp, it was it was an uglier Johnny Depp. So it was kind of I actually like the uglier version, and then them saying, "But you're better looking." I prefer that. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I like that better.
Huh.
Interesting.
What about you, Mike? You have a unique look. There's not too many quarter Asian guys.
It's true.
Well, Jimmy Fallon would be the most.
I used to get Fallon, and then Pete Wentz for a bit when my hair was kind of swooped.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. That makes sense.
When I was young and had long hair, people used to compare me to Keanu Reeves from Bill and Ted's.
Oh,
a Bill and Ted's vibe.
It always depends on your facial hair, how fat you are, and all that. So it changes. In the summertime, I get way different. Or if I'm wearing sunglasses, way different too.
Yeah. Well, speaking of famous people, let's get to the interview.
On this episode of the Podmax, we talked to Kirk Hammett.
Man, when we got the call about this interview, that he requested the pod.
That's right. Well,
I don't know exactly how true that is, but
well, we heard from Greg Stewart, who does amazing. He's the best. Every time you see the Facebook Live, we're in his office. He lets us do all the interviews in his office, and I saw him in the halls at 299, and he's like, "Dude, Metallica's coming to town. They requested the Mike on Much podcast." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Really?" Now the way these things work is, I'm sure Kirk or
the publicist
Lars
says Kirk wants to do something cool. What's the cool thing at Bell?
Yeah, but cool guy.
Yeah, he. It's kind of crazy to think, like, to talk to anybody who's lived the life that he has, because like their story is crazy. Because when I was preparing for the interview, like the story with their bass player dying is just insane, and he has something to do with it. Do you know the story?
No.
So basically, they were on a tour in Europe in like 1985. And they were probably just wasted because they were wasted basically for all the 80s. He got in an argument with the bass player saying who had what bunk on the bus. And they ended up playing cards. Kirk Hammett lost and said, okay, what bunk do you want? And the bass player said, I want your bunk. And then so he slept in Kirk Hammett's bunk that night. The bus crashes, topples over, and the bass player gets like stuck underneath the bus.
Jeez.
That should have been Kirk Hammett.
Terrible.
That's like one part of Kirk Hammett's story, and there's like 1,000 parts of it.
Well, it's a good lesson to the Champagne Boys not to be so petty too, because things can happen.
Yeah, that's why I don't like fights at bars, because it's not the fight itself, but it's like somebody falls and then hits their head, and then they die.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going.
Yeah, going back to Metallica. Jesus, going back to Metallica. For me, Metallica is like I would say we had more response when we posted like the photo of me with Kirk Hammett from just like generally people that are so excited and stoked. Like Metallica means a lot to a lot of people, and I sometimes forget. It's like for a lot of people, like Metallica is their Beatles. You know, it's like they're that big, they're that iconic.
Like people you wouldn't think. Like some hot blonde girl will be like, "I love him," and it's like, "What?"
Yeah.
What?
and that's the thing. It's like to be able to get to sit down with him and yap, and he's just open, man. Like I think when you've been doing it that long, there's like kind of a looseness where you're not uptight. I don't.
Well, everything about your personal life has already been written about you, kind of. You think so? It's like with all of us, we're sort of hiding things from our parents that we don't want to tell them about or whatever. Or at least I am. But but with Kirk Hammett, it's like anything you want to know. But like it's like, yeah, I tried heroin a couple times. It's like, oh yeah, this thing happened. So.
Yeah, his Wikipedia specifically talks about him seeing his neighbor copulate with his dog.
Oh yeah, that was so weird.
Such a random thing in the Wikipedia.
Oh yeah,
and it was like, do you bring this up? Why is that in the Wikipedia? Is it because it's so bizarre that it can't help but be in there, or is it a pivotal moment? Like, very weird thing to be in the Wikipedia.
We did not get to.
We didn't ask about that.
Yeah. I would have asked it.
I know you would.
So tell us about that time.
Opening question. Let's talk dog sex.
All right, you want to get to Kirk Hammett?
Do it, yeah.
How's it going? I'm Mike.
Good, man.
So nice to meet you.
Likewise. Alrighty. Yeah, a little stand and everything.
Pro setup here.
Do you need the full 20?
Yeah, I mean, we'll roll, and then if you want to pop in.
Well, I'll give you a
wrap us.
5-minute warning and a 1. How's that? Okay?
Sounds great.
Groovy. All right. Have at it.
Thanks so much.
Cool. Thank you.
Been doing a lot of these today?
Oh, this is only the second one, so
We're number 2.
yeah.
All right.
It's still fresh. It's like when it's like number 11 or 12, but I'm like, yeah. No.
Starts to be a bit much. Yeah, all one-word answers.
No. Yeah.
That's hilarious. We interviewed Scott Weiland, actually, and he came in and he ate a grilled cheese the whole time, and he gave me all yeses and nos, burned through my questions in 5 minutes.
Yeah, he kind of wanted to go the way he did. He wanted that conclusion. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Bummer, because he was really talented.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. I can see you guys are having a nice Toronto day out here.
You're here on the right day. How long you been in town?
Almost 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got was it raining last night though? But
yeah, it was pretty cold last night.
You got a good day today though.
So I hear.
Yeah, which is rare in late November for us.
Yeah. The sun came out and I was like, hey, the sun.
Came out just for Metallica today. I want to start with the Opera House. You guys playing the Opera House tonight?
Yes.
When you guys decide to do something like a club show, we like on this podcast, we like to really get into sort of the minutia of how creative decisions are made within a group or any artists making something. When you decide to do a club show like the Opera House, or say do Fallon, or you're doing Enter Sandman with the Roots, how are those decisions made, like within the group? Is there anyone that needs convincing? Is it?
No, I mean, it just kind of goes along with what sort of situation we're in right now, which the situation we're in right now is, we've recorded an album, we're doing tons of press, We need to drum up as much promotion and publicity as we can for this album, and we've known from past experiences that deciding to go out there and do all these small shows in smaller venues in major cities creates a major event in every city, and it just really helps with the push of the album. And so we played a couple shows in Berlin, we played a show in Paris, we played a show in London, we played a show in New York, we're going to play a show tonight here in Toronto, we're going to play a show in LA, we're going to play a show in San Francisco. They're all smaller shows with the expressed intention to like give our hardcore fans a treat with a small show, and also pack the show with as much media people as possible, record company people who've worked with us, old friends, associates, whatever.
Yeah,
it's just a great thing.
Get the word out, a little bit of a party.
Yeah. And as far as we're concerned, the band is concerned, we love playing smaller stages. I mean, I'd rather play a club show than be on a stage that's 300 feet long. It takes me 2 minutes to run from one side to another with my guitar on, and I'm supposed to be playing the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just a different animal. And
with the smaller stage, does it feel like it's almost back to sort of that original?
Absolutely.
It's just the sound and everything, right?
Everything. It's great when the other guys are only a few feet away, and it feels like we're playing, in our rehearsal space. But there just happens to be 800 people or whatever out there watching us. But the small stages and the small shows are a lot of fun because our band dynamic really comes alive because we're so close to each other. We can see each other. We're vibing. We're on a small stage, and the audience is out there vibing with us, and we can see the audience, and we're a little bit closer to them too. So it's a better experience for us. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
When you decide to do the Fallon sort of deal, is that we're all in, let's do it, we're up for these sort of things, or was it we'll see how this goes, this could be the weirdest thing ever?
No, we're always up for most stuff. Either we're up for it because we think it's cool, or we're up for it because we think it's a cool challenge, or we're up for it because we think it's just necessary. And the Fallon thing, playing with the Roots, sounded like just a fun thing. So we just said, heck yeah, we'll do it. Unfortunately, I got stuck with a hard instrument. I got stuck with the melodica, which was I had to actually concentrate.
How many times did you guys rehearse it?
Oh, 4 or 5 times.
So 4 or 5, and then or do you shoot it all 5 times?
We just shot every single time and just showed the best one. It's supposed to be kind of loose and fun and
totally
kind of goofy, and so.
Yeah, I think if it's a little all over the place, it's part of the charm.
Yeah,
the school
absolutely.
Instruments. You mentioned doing a club show in San Francisco. You're from San Francisco, right?
Yes.
You live there now?
Yes.
Do you find now there's just as much enthusiasm where friends and family are like, you guys are doing a club show?
Oh, it's
get me in.
Oh, it's I don't even want to talk about it. It's just physics says that you can only cram a certain amount of space into another space. Well, physics doesn't come into play with our shows.
Yeah,
it's just when there's ever an announcement that we're playing in San Francisco, my phone just starts ringing, my texts start going off, my emails just ridiculous. My 4th, 5th, and 6th cousins who live 300 miles away, who I see every 10 years, start contacting me. The guy I went to school with, who I still know. From 5th grade, he'll call me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, I have to say yes to everyone.
Yeah, you don't want to. No one wants to be left out. Yeah. You don't want to be the bad guy to say, there's no tickets. Man.
Yeah.
On this record, I'd read that you lost 250 demos.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, man. And with that, I guess my question is, can you describe how your process changed within the band and how you're able to sort of contribute and still find meaning, even though all of those riffs and pieces that you had that maybe would have been applied to this record have gone to the ether?
I've become the poster boy for losing my iPhone. for the world, and that doesn't feel good. What I do now is when I write something, if I can't remember it, just by picking up my guitar and remembering it, then it's probably not that good.
Interesting.
And I'm saying this after a lot of thought and a lot of thought about how music used to be composed before we had things like
easily
tape recorders, digital recorders, whatever. It was all written by and remembered, or written down on pieces of paper and remembered. And they can only remember the best stuff. I mean, when they sat down back then in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, up into the 70s, they had to remember whatever they played. They just couldn't turn on a recorder and remember how abstract that feel was, or how weird that feel was. I mean, if it was abstract or weird, they wouldn't be able to remember the feel. But if it was like really cool and catchy, of course they'd be able to remember it. And so I've kind of adopted that sort of attitude. If I can't remember it at any point, then maybe it just wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the approach I've taken now, which is kind of a healthier approach, because I'm not so dependent on recording the stuff. And it also tells me that, the stuff that I'm writing that I can remember is of a higher quality because it's instantly accessible and I can remember it easily.
Well, that's an interesting thought. It's almost like the idea that now you can walk away from your composition and then come back to it at any time. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the past, it's almost like I have to work on this composition and basically live with it.
Yeah, and remember
in order to get my
so
reps.
it had to flow, and it had to be catchy, and it had to be good for you to be able to remember it. And so that's kind of like my attitude right now is if I write a piece of music, it has to be good enough to be able to be, for me to recall it 100%. And so that's kind of like what I'm working on now.
Yeah.
And how I recall that stuff is I title it and write the title down on the piece of paper and just a few notes. I don't record it at all.
So just notes in order to retain. It's like
to recall it, yeah. And I only remember the parts that I can remember. And I'm realizing those are the parts I should be remembering.
Mm-hmm. This album is coming on the heels of a really divisive U.S. election.
Yeah.
And, I think it channels like a lot of the anger and anxiety that, maybe a lot of people feel. My question is, how much do you, as Kirk Hammett, identify with like those emotions and sort of how everybody's feeling after?
Well, I gotta tell you, our album came at the right time because, with that big shakeup that happened November 8th and then our album coming out November 18th, I'm a little happy for the fact that that at least our album came out and we can like bring some sort of solace to some people out there who are really upset or disappointed or
it can be like a cathartic record almost.
Yeah, and that's fine. For me, it's just like I'm the guy who's just like always angry. My anger is just like always under the surface, and it just manifests in the weirdest, most craziest, strangest ways. And, it's something that I've had to deal with all my life. And so, when things like the election comes up and it's so weird and so divisive, I have to check myself and check my own anger and go, it's just, it's not something that's gonna like change my life completely, and I really have to like check it and just make sure that my anger doesn't just like send me off into an unhealthy space. But the situation with the politics in America right now and in Britain, it's weird. It's almost like it has to happen to give people a little bit of perspective on how things could be a lot worse for us. But as far as that's concerned, I mean, I don't know what the is gonna happen. I need to like be optimistic about it, but I'm gonna wait and watch and pay attention for sure.
See how it unfolds.
Yeah.
Do you sort of follow along and check it every day, or do you find that can be infuriating, or is it something that maybe
I
keep it at arm's length?
Ever since I was like 8 or 9 years old, I've been a news junkie.
Really?
Yeah, I've been reading the newspaper ever since I was like eight or 9 years old, from back to back every day.
What's your go-to news source?
I have a few of them. New York Times, Huffington Post, the Daily Beast, Washington Post, San Francisco Chronicle, Hawaii Civil Beat. I mean, I just bounce from all the other ones, because to me it's important to just not go to just one site. It's important to go to a lot of different sites and get a lot of different perspective.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk about, what your routine looks like when you're at home, when you're not on the road, and then how you stay healthy on the road. Mm-hmm. Like, what does a day look like for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, day in, day out, and I've been doing it for years. Just I wake up, I do yoga, I meditate, and then depending on where I'm at, I'll either go to the gym, go for a run, go for a bike ride, or go out and surf. And after that, by the time I'm done with that routine, it's like maybe 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and then at my rest of the day, which entails being a dad, playing guitar, just, and life in general. And it's fairly simple and fairly basic for me. And on the road, I just do an extension of that. I mean, today I woke up, I did yoga, I meditated, I went down to the gym, and then came back up here, got ready for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play a show tonight. Tomorrow I'll probably do the same. Wake up, go down, do yoga, meditate, go down to the gym, then I'll do a bunch of press, and then hop on a plane and fly back to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a week and a half off, and then we play. We go down to LA and do exactly what we're doing here, but in LA.
I'm always interested when a band has been as successful as you guys and sort of at the top, legendary in your genre. It's fascinating because I always think about there's always somebody that maybe you aspire to, or for instance, Bono feels like he's a huge star, but you get him in a room with Paul McCartney, he goes, oh, damn, I'm not Paul McCartney. And then you get Paul McCartney in the room, he goes, oh, maybe I'm not as cool as Mick Jagger. And Mick Jagger goes, ah, shit, well, we're not as revered as the Beatles, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you guys, or you specifically, is there somebody that you sort of hold in that reverence? And then
there's a I mean, as a guitar player, there's a lot of other musicians out there who I I'm just such a huge fan of. I mean, all the British guitar players, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, all those guys, I really have a lot of respect for. And a lot of the guys, lesser known guys too, like Peter Green, Davy Johnstone, Rory Gallagher.
Are there any new guys that get your competitive juices flowing? Or bands that you go?
Oh, I love Gojira. I think they're a really, really great band. Their newest album is fantastic. I just love it. Whenever I get around people who influenced me as a kid, I just totally turn into a fan again. I mean, like any of the guys in the Scorpions or any of the guys in UFO. I mean, I love those bands, and any of the 70s hard rock bands like Aerosmith, Pat Travers, Van Halen.
Van Halen, Aerosmith, eh?
Yeah, I mean those. Anyone from those bands. Kiss. I mean, anyone who was had anything to do with Thin Lizzy. I mean,
do you forge friendships with those guys? Even though
absolutely. I have a pretty good relationship with Ulrich Roth, who is the one of the first guitar players of the Scorpions, and Michael Schenker, who's one of my biggest influences. I have a somewhat of a relationship with him as well.
Is it odd to go from fan to peer?
you don't feel it.
It's just
to me, it's just like, it's just like I'm 15 years old again, and I
just making friends.
Eddie Van Halen walks into the room. I'm 15 years old again. I'm like, hey, Eddie, explain some more of this stuff to me,
Yeah. Lastly, as far as Metallica, is there any parts of the band's narrative that you feel gets overlooked? Or conversely, like, what part of your story are you most proud of that maybe doesn't get the most attention?
Well, the whole Napster thing is very controversial.
Sure.
But, I really feel that we're ahead of everyone else on that. And I just wish we would have had more support during that period. If we would have had more support during that period and more help, I sincerely believe that things would have been slightly different nowadays, and things would have been a little better for the artist now, in more recent times. Because since Napster, it's been a steady decline in the music industry, and
it essentially
for bands,
collapsed.
Yeah, and for bands and musicians, and the decline is fairly consistent. It hasn't gotten better for musicians since then.
And you recognized the danger early on.
Yeah.
But in the moment, there was like a level of sort of like, calm down.
Yeah. But I mean, having said that, there is a shiny side to that whole thing, in that bands now have the same platform to go out there and put their music out as any other band out there, including us. They have the same platform, whether or not they can drum up the same amount of attention or not. That's their job, and their responsibility. But I mean, I just wish that people would have paid more attention to the plight that we're trying to bring awareness around. And we got hammered for it, and particularly Lars got hammered for it, and I thought that was really unfair. And still to this day, he gets crap for it, and I still think it's just unfair and opportunistic for people to give him crap.
Well, thank you for your time, man.
Thanks.
I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Good questions, man.
Oh, thanks.
Was that really going out live?
We were going live for like the first 10 minutes or so.
Okay, good. It's
On our
good that I
Facebook
didn't
page.
pick my nose.
It's all good.
All right, we're in the dessert, fellas. What's going on? Actually, I feel like there's been a saga. This if we do talk about, and I know we will, Mr. Frank D'Angelo. This will be the 4th episode in a row.
People are liking it though.
They're
like
enjoying the
Ashley,
saga.
our manager who listens to the pod, she was like, "When's the Frank episode going to come out?" I've been getting text message. Joe DiBenedetto, shout out to Joe.
People have been contacting me a lot, like more than they ever have about any subject.
Yeah.
Like people I haven't talked to from like high school days are contacting me on Facebook and stuff about that.
I was at a basketball game last night with Justin Stockman, who he approves all of these pods, so he's been following along, and he's of the mind that the saga is more interesting than ultimately the interview will end up being.
If anyone hasn't been following the saga, Mike, you're good at recapping things. What's Frank D'Angelo?
Frank D'Angelo is
What is Frank D'Angelo?
He's a millionaire filmmaker. He does films sort of like it's his passion, but his business is like apple juice, cheetah energy drinks. But then he uses his money to fly in, so name actors like James Caan, Michael Madsen. He puts them in these films. He does them. He has 5 films out. Shane is obsessed with his work.
I'm a huge fan of his, first and foremost. Like, I'm a legit fan, read his biography. And I was a little nervous when we had the interview set up. Like, it had already fallen through once.
We'd gone to his restaurant. Frank did not show up. Shane had missed an email. So that was strike one. Mm-hmm. So then he's like, we're going to reschedule for this Thursday.
So
and you, Shane, thought Frank was with him because he may have listened to the pod and thought like we weren't taking him
my initial
seriously.
feeling was, I'm usually a pretty good gut instinct person. Like, if I feel something's going on, not always right, but I'm right 9 times out of 10. So I'm a little skeptical the interview's going to happen, even though in all probability, if a guy says he's going to do it after he cancels, he's going to do it, right? Because otherwise he would just say, actually, I'm not going to do it. Anyway, day of the interview, I woke up at Mike's place because I wanted to be in Toronto to wake up, like be able to sleep in a little bit because Mike has a place in Toronto. I go to Good Life to shower because, you were showering anyway at the same time. I come out of the shower. And as I'm getting dressed, my phone's ringing.
Our interview is at noon that day. We're going to go to Mississauga, Shane and I. And so when I get to work, I see that Shane's not there. I'm like, oh, we're going to this interview in like an hour. It's like, 10:30 or something. I'm like, we got to leave soon, but Shane's not around. Interesting.
I was at Good Life, just showering.
No one's accusing you of anything else.
I was not jerking off a guy. Not saying you were. Well, I wasn't. So as I get a phone call that says no caller ID, and I get caller, what do they call, telemarketers sometimes. So typically I don't answer. But given what happened last time, I'm like, oh, this is probably an assistant saying the interview's over or something. I go, hello? I get, hello? I'm like, hi? It's like, what, are you sleeping? I'm like, no, I was just at the gym working out. Even though I literally just took a shower and that was it. But he's like, Frank here. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to, I don't know, reschedule. I got a movie shooting in February. He's like, and we're doing production today and I just can't film it. Initially, I'm very suspicious. I'm like, this can't be the real reason. If this was, get your assistant to call.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just being polite and he's like, I want to handle this. So I say, oh, that's fine, Frank. We can reschedule. I know you're a busy guy. And I can tell he wants more of a reaction from me. He wants me to be more disappointed. But like you say, like bees with honey, take the high road, all that stuff. Whatever that slogan was, what was it again?
They go low, we go high.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So I did that thing. And then he's like, yeah, but I was actually listening to, you're the end guy, right? You come on at the end. So blood's pumping, like I'm sweating like a pig. Yes, I am, Frank. Hi, yeah. Well, a smattering of applause, eh? After the film, there was a smattering of applause.
Referencing Shane going to the premiere.
I said, sorry, Frank, I recorded that a while ago. I'm not even sure what I said. Well, he's like, I'll tell you, you said there was a smattering of applause after my premiere of my film. There was not a smattering. There was a wave of applause. He's like, except for that, when they showed that Michael Paré, because he was a prick in the film. So he's being kind of funny about it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was a 25-minute conversation that Mike and I had. Some of it was edited. Parts may have taken out that kind of threw it out of context. And, I'm sorry. He's like, well, I don't like untruths. He's like, I need the truth. If I'm going to do something, I need the truth. I'm like, well, yeah, that's totally understandable. And I'm very sorry. He's like, and another thing, friends and family, I didn't know any of those guys. Those weren't friends and family in the crowd. It's like, those were all, he's like, how long before did you have to buy tickets to the premiere? It was like a week. He's like, exactly. He's like, that was a sold out show. You made it seem like it was just friends and family. And I'm honestly feeling bad. I'm like, oh, okay. That was my guess that it could have been friends and family, but I don't know. So I'm backpedaling. I'm like, listen, I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. Sometimes I'm just doing things for comedy's sake. He's like, Howard? It's like, I've been on Howard 3 times. Or no, he said twice. Now I got to get things straight here. He said, I've been on Howard Stern twice. And I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. I'm the biggest Howard Stern fan ever. He's like, yeah, me too. So we're kind of connecting. Then he starts talking about the Canadian Maple Leaf, how it's a great film. I agree with him, say it's great. I start throwing in other tidbits, how I'd seen all of his movies. And then he's like, I kind of like how you're talking now. He's like, see, I like this. I like how you're talking now. And then I'm like, well, and another thing, I was wondering, I've made a documentary. I was actually hoping I could do a documentary on you. He's like, I don't need reality shows. They contact me. I don't need no cameras following me around. I say, well, my doc has actually been on Netflix. I'm part of a documentary team. It's called Delivery. He's like, Delivery, I like this. And he's like, what's it about? I'm like, well, it's about life, death, and stand-up comedy. He's like, this sounds very profound to me. This sounds profound. He's like, maybe I'll have you as a guest on my show. Woo! So he's got Being Frank, a late night talk show.
Oh my God.
Which is my dream to be on that show. It honestly is. So he says, I'll tell you what, I'll check out the doc. He's like, I got Netflix on my phone. He's like, I got it on my phone. I got it on my TV. I got Netflix coming on my ass or whatever. So I'm like, okay, sweet. And I'm all nervous. We start talking about all of his films, and I felt like I built a lot of credibility that
Because you knew all the details.
I'm a legit fan. I had a suspicion that his favorite role would be in the Big Fat Stone, which is where he plays a homeless man, and it was his favorite film. So I'm thinking maybe now he actually wants to do the interview, but he's already said that he can't do it. So I'm like, shit. If only I had spoken better on the previous desserts, I think we could have had the interview. Anyway, get off the phone. I tell Mike, obviously Mike is disappointed, but Mike is ready for anything after what happened.
Not surprised at all.
I was like, I'm going for lunch.
But a couple days go by, I don't hear anything from Frank. There's no follow-up about delivery. So I send him like a big document. It's just listing all the films I've been a part of, all the documentary films and the team and how we would do it. I get no reaction. Couple more days go by. Now I'm like, geez, how do I get this guy's attention? So remember when I was talking to you, Max, and I asked you if you'd ever do a duet with Frank? For My Heart's Always Yours, right?
Yeah.
And you said you would.
Yeah.
So I approached him again as maybe you appearing on as just a musical guest, like cut me out, because maybe Frank hates me at this point. But you're the most likable guy in the world. So I figured he can't not like Max Kerman. And I was like, I work with Max Kerman, lead singer of the Arkells, who is the biggest band in Canada at the moment. They won the 2015 Juno for Best Band, and they also won for Best Album. So anyways, I was like, here's this song. Let me know if you'd like to do a duet with Max and he could appear on the Being Frank show. But obviously, I didn't run that part by you until right now.
You just said, would you do some music with Frank? It wasn't even a duet. Or maybe you said duet, but I didn't know it was for My Heart. But anyway, I like it already. Continue.
So you'll do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So am I going? So has he gone back to you about that?
I just sent that email.
Okay. I'm in.
Do you think he'll respond though? I wonder if I've ruined it. Like,
no.
I think he's probably waiting to hear the episodes. Last week's episode, we talked about him not showing up to the interview. So I wonder how he felt about that.
You know what you said. You know that you have good gut instincts. When you said, I'm worried, because you literally said this like 2 weeks ago, I'm worried that he's listened to the pod and he doesn't think we're taking him seriously. And I said, there's no way he listens to the pod. That guy's doing 9 million other things. There's no way he found the podcast, fast forwarded to the end of the podcast of the dessert. But I'm totally wrong. You're totally right. He totally did listen to the podcast.
And now you're going to have to do a duet with him because of it.
Which is, I'm kind of excited about now, actually, to be honest.
Perfect.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you for listening.
Please subscribe to the show on iTunes. Tell your friends about it. If you're a fan of the podcast, we could use your support by just spreading the good word. So you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at MikeOnMuch. All the artwork is provided by Jenna Gregory at jennasdoodles.com. Huge shout out to Dan Carruthers and Pasquale.
Killing it every week.
Every week we're killing it on social media and uploading the shows. Justin Stockman in the house.
Greg Stewart always giving us a spot to interview.
Kristen Nichols.
Oh, and I'm going to Hawaii.
Oh, that will be next episode. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That is a huge exciting thing.
Yeah.
See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.